Just over here. I am the head system trader here at Macro Ops. And last week, we got into so far an excellent crude trade. Got long crude down in the 57 range. We're currently up in the 60s. Um, and then I talked about the opportunity to take that up into the 120s if, world war chaos breaks out. I got a lot of DMs. I got a lot of comments. People reached out directly. Uh, okay, so let's dig into this a little bit more. Um, Quick background on me. I'm a former Marine. For those of you who are unaware, we don't say ex-Marines, we say former Marines if we're no longer active or in that. The only former Marine is a dead Marine. So this might be a Marine moto video for at least a little bit of it. Just expect it. Okay. I've been in the security business for since the beginning of the global war on terror. Back in the 2000s, I've worked with State Department, other government places. I've worked heavily in Latin America. I've lived in Latin America for over 10 years myself. Um, in addition to working and consulting and everything in Latin America. So I have a much different understanding different than maybe somebody else might. Who knows? Whatever. But I don't think I'm going to get too far into that today. One thing I wanted to talk about is, first things first. Let me take a look at that trade. Not only did I get a lot of people reaching out saying, like, talk more about Venezuela and what could potentially happen in Latin America, but also this trade. Um, and nobody wants it when it's down in the 50s. Suddenly, now that it's back up in the 60s and had, a move from 57 up into the 60, or low 60s in like one day, a lot of people are suddenly a lot more interested in it. We had two trading days where it's been calm, so the interest has died out as happens. It's funny. But this is the trade we got in. We're already in profits. We're well into profits. We move our stock to break even. And I put together in the last video, I put together how I, see that could potentially move up to maybe even 100% jump in the price of oil uh, in the next little while. So we'll see on that. Um, Now, one of the things that I kept talking, I've been having this conversation with a number of people, and this is why I'm most interested in, just because a bunch of people are reaching out and saying, "Hey, that's interesting." I think more people are interested in like, "Hey, more trades on like this." Uh, but I've had a lot of conversations with people who are um, understandably only understand or think about the last 20 something years in Iraq and Afghanistan, where it was just troops and door to door and village to village. And it was a tough, it sucked, right? Um, what a lot of people don't understand, and a lot of people are thinking of what is potentially happening is now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm not saying that it doesn't turn into if Venezuela happens, which I believe is pretty likely. Um, it's not to say that it doesn't turn into another 10, 15 year of, like us dealing with our, the repercussions of our actions. I'm a United States citizen, so I say us. That could very, that could very well be the case. But what I want to talk about is the tools that are currently in place to be used. And it's completely different than what we've seen in the last 25, 20, something years of war. And that's the Naval and Marine Corps involvement. So I'm going to walk through what the capabilities are and what they're designed to do. Okay. So first things first, this is a map of, as of today, um, the deployed units of the military of the Navy. So one of my, my first ship ever when I was a Marine, FYI, Marines go on ships. So me and, a couple thousand of my best friends lived on this ship for 6 months, and we trained up on it for another 6 months prior to that, before we, traveled the world and went around over here on this. It's the LHD Landing Helo Dock 4 USS Boxer. It's home station out of San Diego, California. And what it is it's the flagship of a what's called an ARG, an amphibious ready group, ARG. Okay. An amphibious ready group is what is in the Caribbean right now. So the USS Boxer is a single ship. The ARG is a group of ships, a group of capabilities that include, so these ships launch aircrafts. They have landing crafts, they've got mechanized, they've got helos, and they've got troops. And the troops we're talking about are U.S. Marines in what is called a Marine Expeditionary Unit, a MEU, SOC, Special Operations Capable. Now, that part you might ring up, think to yourself, oh yeah, special operations. I've heard about them for the last, 20 years. That was like that's everything that everybody talks about on YouTube, blah blah blah. Yes, it's all that. One thing about the history is we've always trained and fought for the previous war. So when I was in the military, a lot of what we did was, Desert Storm, Vietnam type of training, because that was like the leadership, the people that in the military, everybody joins. Okay, you've got 90 something percent of the military is a 4-year contract. It's just in and out, in and out. It's just churning people through the system. Small, very small amounts actually stay in past 4 years, all the way to, 20, 30 something years. It's extremely competitive after your first 4 years, especially when there's not war happening. And that's what that's just built up. That's why there's so many people, former military people, is because a lot of people, it's like a 4-year college for a lot of people. A lot of people in the United States have gone off to university. A lot of people have gone off to the military. A lot of people have done both, right? But it's it is similar to that. So um, back to that, you've got and a few weeks ago on they did a demonstration off of Camp Pendleton, California, of an ARG and a Marine Expeditionary Unit Special Operations Capable. So I get it. I get to the idea of special operations, and you think to yourself like, okay, Army bases, big supply chains, going out doing raids at night, hunt down Osama bin Laden, um, you know, kicking indoors and doing all that sort of stuff. That is one of the capabilities of the MEU SOC. Okay. It's also one of the capabilities of special operations units, right? Like it's just one of the things. It's just that was the big thing that happened for the last 20 something years. Okay. Theoretically, potentially, right now, we have the opportunity to see what a MUSOC would do leading this. Now, Marines are known for, first to fight, first on the ground, doing the initial thing, and then with the support of the Navy, of course, and naval aviation, Air Force, and then certainly joining units of the Army and whatever. But when you think of the Marines going in, you think of like storming a beach, right? And then the Army comes in, and Marines don't really have tanks. And in fact, I think we've completely like eliminated all tanks in the Marine Corps. Um, and so that's a capability we need from the Army to come in and nothing like a good tank when you're in a neighborhood that's full of bad guys hiding in every nook and cranny, it certainly is a lot more helpful than you and your buddy's rifle. So everybody has a place to serve, but in this particular incident, the um, the Marine Special Operations capable portion of it can do a litany of things, which I'll get to in a minute. The Ford Carrier Strike Group, Gerald R. Ford, is the most advanced aircraft carrier in the U.S. fleet. It's currently in the Mediterranean, and it should take 7 days of steaming to make it to the Caribbean area of operations, though it could stop in any number of places along the way to retrofit, to swap out. Who knows? I mean, you know, leading up to this conversation, I don't know how long these folks have been. So some people are stationed on the Ford and the adjoining ships because there's a number of ships that go along with it, including submarines and whatnot. There's a number of people who are on like the tail end of a deployment. A deployment is typically 6 months. So they could swap out and then bring the fresh crew in. A number of things could happen. They could just go straight into it. Okay. Another thing you could think about is like, okay, well, while the Ford is heading this way, we have a very unique target set. They've been training for the Middle East target and probably southern southeastern Europe as like a hot zone. Suddenly they're going into, South America. And so that's a different train up and a different terrain and all sorts of different things, capabilities. So they may have to do some, it might make sense to, swap out the units that could be trained for this with units that are currently on the Ford. So a long way they could swap and then head out. So a lot of things could happen. A lot of things could happen. And then, of course, we have, the Nimitz, the George Washington, and then another LH. These look familiar. LHD, LHA. This is the Tripoli. This is another similar capability of the Marine Corps Navy. Okay, so right away, one thing that the next thing I want to kind of point out in all of this that's going on, this is all spread out. This is the first time since I can recall that we've had anything in and around the Panama Canal. So that might be food for thought, right? If suddenly, all of this is open, we've got the Red Sea, the Mediterranean, that whole Persian Gulf, that whole region, theoretically has calmed down, or at least we've got troops in place, or maybe we don't care as the United States. Suddenly this reshapes shipping lines around the world by if you've been able to go from whatever, somewhere over here, up here, or over here, and travel through the Panama Canal to do what you needed to do, you've done a lot. You've been able to do pretty much straight shots across. It's fairly cheap, it's very safe, and all that. Suddenly, there's some new calculus. If the US military is right in here and this shipping line gets shut off, that opens up, that forces you to go around the South America. Also kind of cool because now Argentina becomes a port stop. Chile, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia become port stops for a lot of this shipping. This could mean that there's a new trans South American pipeline or shipping lines, or that could develop out some of that sort of stuff. So maybe there's some strategic thing going on that is more business related and not so much war related here. All stuff to think about, whether it's true or not. It's calculus. It's things to calculate, right? It's just what's going on. So now that changes, now you can kind of skip if you're already down here, you can skip Africa. You've got the southern part of Africa, you've got Australia, all of, straight into Asia, and it kind of puts a, puts a bypass on NATO, I guess. Um, interesting to look at. We'll take it a little bit further later. Next, I talked about the capabilities of the ARG. Let me pull up what is part of the in the Caribbean right now. Okay. In the Caribbean, just right now, the Iwo Jima and the adjoining units, not the Ford, are this is what we're dealing with. So we've got the LHD-7, the Fort Lauderdale, which is an LPD, the LPD-17, San Antonio, Fort Lauderdale, and Iwo Jima, the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, and the air group out of New River. We've got 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines, so an entire Marine regiment, in addition to combat logistics and squadron. So a couple thousand Marines and sailors are involved in this ready group. 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines regiment. So a platoon, you're looking at about 35. There's 3 squad. It's about 100 people per company, 150 per company. It rolls up into a battalion and then regiment. A BLT, battalion landing team, is, I think we're up about 500 Marines or so. I mean, and by the way, this changes because you can have reinforcements. They've taken and added new weapon systems here and there, and all that. And look, they're making some ribs down here, for the troops on LPD 17. Um, they've got, in addition to that, they've got guided missile destroyers. So these things are basically just war. There's no like there's no Marines on there that are going to come in and do an amphibious landing. This is just warships. Their job is to shoot missiles, rockets, CWIS, all that sort of stuff. So you've got one, two, three, four, the Lake Erie guided missile cruiser, and then a littoral combat ship, the Wichita, which is it's more of a tool to get on, do stuff in the harbor where big ships can't go. They can do the work inside. We also have different type of aircraft for that. So let me see if I can find what's going on. Carrier Structure 12 in the Red Sea, in the Persian Gulf, the Eastern Pacific. Where is, that's the Nimitz. What comes with the Gerald R. Ford? Gerald R. Ford. It comes with, it's a lot of F-18s. A lot of F-18s. You have electronic attack squadrons. You've got intelligence. You got command and controls. You've got logistics birds. You've got helicopters. You've also got the this is a combat squadron of helicopters. So they kind of come in and can move troops and provide logistics and also strike capabilities. Then you have a squadron of also strike capabilities. The Winston S. Churchill is also in there. You've got just more destroyers, boom, 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 guided missile destroyer, and so quite a lot of capabilities. Notice I'm not talking about any ground pounding Marines coming from this. This is all like aircraft. So you're bringing an entire U.S. naval aviation base into the region on a ship that can just sit out here. And you think about that, is we talked about this last week, is this whole area can just be multiple US bases that float around and go wherever they want. They can come down here, they can go up in here, they can pop down in there. We have the US Naval Base Guantanamo Bay. I was stationed there for a year. Um, you can have troops pop in, like a lot of things can come from there. We also have the F-35s stationed in Puerto Rico right now. We have troops in Trinidad, Tobago, right off it. So there's a huge troop presence right here. And again, the Panama Canal right here, which you can see this little passage right there, is shut down for a potential lot amount of shipping. If you're doing and I'm going to get to why. If you're doing anything in here and the US is kind of like, you know what, I don't trust you. You're coming too close to our US fleet. So when you start looking at like what's going to be, remember all the ships I just went to, let's call it 25 ships are going to be like floating around in here. Okay, how hard is it going to be you're going to want to do everything you can to avoid running into them, right? And getting anywhere near them. And so if you don't, you're going to get shot at or boarded. More on that. And so it's a you get too close to Guantanamo Bay over here. Whoops. Too close to Guantanamo Bay, they'll come out and get you. Any of the ships in this region, they'll come out and get you. So now, when this was if you were shipping goods that were questionable, um, suddenly, like sanctioned goods, for example, um, suddenly you have to start going down all the way down into, down into Argentina to the South Pole to Antarctica, basically to travel and that adds a lot to it. So we've talked about what's there. Let's get into the Marine Expeditionary Force Special Operations Capable. It came about in the 80s. There are U.S. military folks who don't focus on the previous war. They look ahead. And what they offer is, we have them in let me see. We have them over here in Japan, in Okinawa, and in Hawaii, which kind of over here. We have Marine Expeditionary Units over here in the West Coast, Southern California, and then on the East Coast, Camp Lejeune. So we've got basically different MEUs around the world. I was in the 15th MEU a couple of times, for what it's worth. Our mission is there's a lot. We are a package of helicopters, mechanized boats, humanitarian, security, kind of anything that a military you would need or a rapid use of force you would need. That's what we can do. We're not Delta. We're not the best at doing certain things. And by the way, you don't want Delta to, come in and they can do it, no doubt, but you don't have them come in and do like, humanitarian aid where they're handing out, bread and water to people without it. Delta's a different type of unit. SEAL Team 6, use your cool special operations unit, right? So, some of the things that, your typical special operations, yes, the Marine Expeditionary Unit does that for sure. We're talking about, let me see if there's like a list. Here we go. So, there is a Maritime Special Purpose Force. Okay. So that's like the special operations of the MUSOC. They're very good at close quarter battles. So this is that special operations unit you'd think about. Okay. CQB, which, going into small places to do things like you can't throw in a battalion to do things, in certain small places, and you need a small footprint. You got to get in, get out fast. You can't throw in 150, 200 dudes So you want 30, 50 people, 20, 10 people to come in and do something quick. And that's direct action. So that's like a raid, an ambush, direct assault. Um, like this is exactly what we need right here. Not go occupy this spot. It's this is what we need. I need this exact thing right here. Clandestine recovery operations, so sensitive people or personnel, like communication equipments, nuclear devices, spies, I don't know. Then you got trap, which is there was a famous one in the 1990s in the Bosnia War. There was a Air Force pilot, I believe Air Force, who got shot down, and there was a whole movie about it where they went in and the MUSOC went in and recovered a pilot. Demolitions. So you got EOD, explosive ordnance disposal. You find things that for example, we're going to Venezuela and we find a bunch of ordnance. You know, you're untrained infantry marine, which would be like, cool, let's just toss a couple grenades and move on, right? But you never know what you're dealing with. So you need to get specialized people in there to go in and say, okay, is there like chem bio, like chemical biological warfare equipment? Is there nuclear stuff? What's the standoff that we need if we blow this up? Is this actually something we could use ourselves? Like there's all sorts of stuff. Um, IHR, which is hostage recovery. Typically this is like, I mean, you guys know about these, right? Like somebody's being held hostage, pop in, shoot everybody who's, like go in. It's probably one of the most trained for type of jobs that we have in the MSPF, um, or historically was one of the most trained for because, it's a foundational thing because if you can do that and also, the CQB side of things, that these two are like kind of hand in hand. Some of it is really fast, hit hard, get in, get out before the hostage dies. Some of it is get in, get out, and like get people or stuff like that. Then we have, this is more of an Army Ranger type of scenario, which is airfield seizure. But being the Marine Expeditionary Unit is a like self-contained unit. It is itself. It should think of like all the military combined into this small little, 5,000 person type of, if we're looking at 1 million people in the military, like this is a 5,000 person version of it. So it's just let's send a U.S. military to do that. And so we have all these capabilities that we have to be able to do. So one of that is airfield and port seizures, which is huge. Look at, let's look at, we did this last week on the video, but if you're going to be bringing in troops, you have to be able to land them. You have to be able to reinforce them. You have to be able to like have a place for them to like work out of, right? You can't be in like red all the time. You have to come back and replace your food and bullets and your ammo and all that sort of stuff. So having port facilities, you take out port facilities, you take out airfields, and you seize control of that. The enemy forces can't really do a lot. They can't get on private planes and run away. They can't like ship out. So not to say they can't do it in fast boats, coming out of just, out of the Amazon, or, things like that. Um, or, walk across the border and sneak out. Like all those other things are certainly doable, but we're talking like, we need to lock down the big stuff. And then, also we have these spots all over the country. There's population areas. What could we do? Let's go satellite. I think that shows a little bit more of a population, does it? Is there biking more? I wonder if we have like population map tool, travel time measure. Not on this one. But I want to be able to like, knowing what I know living in this region, every one of these towns has, thousands of people. They have restaurants, they've got bars, they've got supermarkets, they've got governments, they've got police departments, they've got military, they've got, so it's not just this Caracas, scenario where everything is centered there. It's literally all over the country where you have things that could be, needed to be taken control of. Like I said, gas and airports, airfield, airports, and key facilities to support the Marine Air Ground Task Force mission or to receive follow-on forces. So this is important, right? So we go in and we seize airfields and we see you look at it, look at it, Marines kind of coming in and doing their stuff. And let's go take a look at Caracas here, right? You've got, let's go back to terrain. Okay. So what we see on Caracas is this whole area is just mountains, right? Here's the airport, here's the port, and then there's this tunnel that goes through, and then you get into Caracas, like this big city right here. Okay. So there's a huge land barrier. So you can't just like, you know, load up on troops, just land a bunch of troops and then just say attack Caracas because it'll take, a long time to hike these mountains, work your way into find, like World War II type of stuff wouldn't be too easy. So you would have to come in over the air probably. But as let's say we get in, we start to get footholds, we get to play. Now, if we have this whole coastal region, we own it, right? And then we can work on defending up, fighting any sort of defense scenarios that we have up in the mountains. Now the army can come in. We can bring in the army with their tanks. We've got this big airfield. We can just start landing tanks. We can just start landing, troops. We've got, 82nd, 101st, 173rd, first, second, third Ranger Bat, all the special forces battalions, all the big battalions of divisions of army troops who can come in here and occupy, right? But you need a place to land them. They need they need an airport to land into, and they need a place to, like get fed into the system. So if they all land in here and they start getting, shipped out to different ports of the, different parts of the country, you need like a central place for that. Next, gas and oil platforms. These are called GoPlats. So sometimes they store different types of armament on these gas and oil platforms. You've probably seen these platforms in the middle of the ocean where they're just, sucking oil and natural gas out of the ocean bed. And oftentimes they store hostages out there, or it's just it tends to be a common place for seizure. Maritime interdiction operations. Okay, and this is where we come into these are called MEOs, maritime interdiction operation. Let's go back to our map here on Panama. You come through the Panama Canal and you bringing sanctioned items, right? Or you're a sanctioned government, and certain things that have been sanctioned are just free flowing to you. Well, now you have all of this area, which is the US, and they have the MUSOC in here. And one of our main mission is VBSS. This is also a Coast Guard mission, visit, board, search, seizure. Sometimes you have, there was a famous one in like this was a common thing off of Somalia. There was the Navy SEALs dev group or SEAL Team 6, whatever you guys want to call them, went in and rescued a ship. That's MEO. And let me stop for a second. The MSPF, Maritime Special Purpose Force, is part of the MUSOC. It's the Special Operations Force of the Special Operations Unit of the MU. Okay, it's comprised. You're gonna have a like a helicopter or aircraft unit. You're gonna have a very specialized special operations unit. You're going to have a little bit less specialized operations unit who, let's say you're going to have a unit who's going to go in and get a special target. You're going to have another unit who's going to provide security for that that team to go in and do that sort of stuff. You're probably going to have like, think of what you would want on a special operations sort of mission, and it's their job to go do these little things. And a lot of that we think about of the last, if you spend a lot of time on YouTube, you probably see a lot of the, this sort of talk. That's there. Okay. That's the MEO type of stuff. There's Navy SEALs involved because this is a joint unit. It's not a Marine only. We are Department of the Navy. So there is let's say you have an air, you have a ground, and you have a water element to bring the fight. Okay. So VBSS is a common thing. And if you're looking for a dictator to leave the country, you search everything that comes out there. There's gonna be a lot of VBSS probably going on out there. It's a tough job. I did a lot of training for that in the military, and I will say it's very hard. The angles are very tight. You're dealing with going from very tight to very wide, and it's such a different environment. And like you're trying to land people on that ship that you're taking down, or get people on a ship that you're taking down is very risky. There's a lot just delivering troops to the platform. So whether you're dropping them out of a helicopter, bringing them up on a boat, however they're getting onto the ship to do the work that they need to do to seize it or search. So visit it, board it, search it, seize it. All of those are the capabilities of an MSPF there. And then you have the RNS, reconnaissance surveillance. So probably a lot of that going on right now, which is the RNS unit recon, force recon. You've probably heard of the Marines special operation kind of unit is force recon, battalion recon. They have the Raider Regiment, which is the tier one type thing. They all snipers, which I guess are designated marksmen now. There's and a regular infantry company, platoon, battalion could be tasked with this job too. The job is to basically go out and identify threats, targets, or other information that could be useful. Um, we have what's called ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, aircraft. A lot of it's drone right now, which is very helpful because you can, you can throw a drone in there, and recovering a drone. If a drone goes down, you don't have to worry so much about a drone, um, bleeding out or dying or giving up intelligence. You can have like capabilities to blow up a drone if they go out of control, things like simple. So that's what's sitting off the coast in here. That's what's going to be sitting out there, the MSPF and the MUSOC. And then that entire aircraft carrier group. So we're going to have subs, we're going to have guided missile destroyers. You're going to have reconnaissance aircraft, you're going to have drones, and you're going to have a bunch of troops, Marines who were always angry, were never happy. I guarantee if you went down and interviewed those dudes right now and said, what's the morale on the ground here? You're going to get a bunch of dudes talking shit. They're not going to say good things, like, oh yeah, we're ready to go. They're like, oh, this is fucking lame. This is stupid. That's the Marine Corps. You're never going to get, there's like one day out of the year when they do something that they'll be really proud and happy about it. And then the next day they'll be just bitching about it forever. So don't take your cue from the dude on the ground. The dude you just interviewed could have just had to spend all night cleaning his room, or being remediated for something being wrong, his uniform being off slightly or something being off, and he's just going to be. Everybody's always angry in the Marine Corps. We're always angry about something. Everything sucks. So don't worry about the morale side of the military. Um, those of us who've been in will be able to filter through that for you. So finally, what I'm setting up here is you've put this. Oh, one other thing. Now you've put multiple mobile U.S. bases and then a potentially new base. So we have Guantanamo. We still have Puerto Rico. Um, and now you would put in Trinidad and Tobago, and then you would potentially have a new base here in off the coast of Venezuela. And then you would put these mobile bases all through the Caribbean. Like the US just went from we don't need to open a base in a country to actually own the shipping and the airspace of that region. We can just put ships in that area. You have, a lot of financial opportunity when a ship pulls into town because, all these people are going to get off ship and spend a bunch of money there. That's the upside. The downside is they're going to come in and shoot a bunch of people. uh, you know. So this, I think the VBSS side, I think that there's something to do with sanctions happening in here. Um, I think that that's a very big possibility. The the other point is now we have a forward staging. Let's say something does happen, Venezuela. I haven't even got into Colombia, Ecuador, any of this other stuff. I haven't got into that. You've got just bases on top of bases and troops on top of troops who can pop down into here for a 1 week mission. You've got a lot of US special operations in this, region over here, in this region over here, all over. And then of course you've got, like what B-52s and a lot of aircraft has to fly from different, like they'll fly a mission from I don't know, let me just say Mississippi all the way to the Middle East. you know let's go in, drop some bombs in here, turn around and go back home, refueling on the way. That now it's just right here. Like it's a afternoon visit. It's a Thursday night that can be done here. So there is remnants of the Monroe Doctrine potentially coming in here, but I think a lot really, like everything gets reshaped if the Panama Canal is kind of shut down for that shipping. You also force Russia to keep doing, this northern exploration through the ice, through the ice up here. Um, this really shuts off a lot of what China now can no longer, everything has to go direct to it. And now you can put another blockade in here if you want. Like it becomes a lot easier to do a lot of things and control your region here. So that's all that. Let me finally get to what that could trigger. Um, what is available during is this it? There it is. This is the original trade. What's available is there we go. We're already here at $73 a barrel on crude. When actual intervention happens in Venezuela, we're looking at 75 to 90. When the infrastructure goes offline, it can go up to $120 a barrel for crude. If a real war happens in Venezuela, we could be looking at 120, 150. And then again, we're reshaping the globe. It's probably an easier picture to look at it. We're reshaping what we have. If we take everything out of that area and just kind of like disappear, like let's just think of World War II. This all was going on in Asia, and we're not leaving Asia with these. But Europe was, the other half of that World War, and one of our biggest mobile opportunities just left. You still have troops in Romania, in Poland, in Germany, like all in there. There's U.S. troops. It's just not supported by naval anymore. It's now NATO's job to focus on that, and the U.S. has its NATO contingent in there, but the shipping lines are now way more. I think they're dialed in over here. So that's what's going on. Long one today. Um, I'll go ahead and tighten it up with a few more of these over the next few days. I got a lot of requests and I got a lot of things to cover. You know, I haven't even got into Colombia. There's a lot going on in Colombia. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow.